Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Agents for Change. I'm your host, Rob Bell, and Agents for Change is a platform that my brother and myself came up with to talk about issues concerning uh, social ills in our community, in particular in the black community. Today we have a special guest. We have Scott Bell with us via telephone, and we're going to hopefully get involved in some pretty good conversation with Scott, and see where it takes us. How you doing, Scott?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. We came up with this platform a couple of months ago because you and I have almost conversation on a daily basis about some of the things that are going on around this country, in particular in our community. And one of the things that I think has been plaguing us the most lately is the violence in our community. And although it is very prevalent, the things that you and I talk about is why is this violence continuing to happen, and what can we do to make some effective change to move it in another direction. So my first question to you is, um, why do you think it's happening?
Well, violence and I'm going to speak specifically to the area I live in. I live in the greater Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, and Philadelphia has made national news lately for the gun violence in the black community. And I mean, you and I both grew up in this very community, and I mean, there's always been a certain level of violence in our community, but the levels that we're seeing now are it kind of harkens you back to the crack epidemic. And when we first started talking about this, I was kind of perplexed about it, and was always trying to figure out like why so much and why now. And I looked at this documentary on Netflix about the crack epidemic, and it seems to me that it's partly the community being desensitized during that crack era of violence, and I think it's also has a lot to do with the proliferation of guns in our community and how easy they are to get. I mean, when those two things converge like that, you have what you have. I mean, that's a little bit of an oversimplification, but those are probably the two main things that I'm seeing.
Do you think it's the responsibility of our local governments and local police departments to try to step in and figure out some strategies as to how we can not necessarily stop the violence, but squash it down a little bit? Or is it the
Well,
responsibility of the individuals that's involved in the violence?
I think it's a collective effort. I think, yeah, that certainly, law enforcement has to play a role, and local government also has to play a role because they're the ones that basically create the laws. But I think it's also about the community itself. They're key to everything. I mean, we can police them and incarcerate them and preach to them and all the things that we do. But I mean, there's some real issues out there that are generating this. I mean, this stuff didn't happen in a vacuum. I mean, when you and I grew up in the '70s, you know, black folks, I mean, they were doing okay. They weren't setting the world on fire economically, but you know, we didn't seem to turn on each other like we've done now. And I think what's happened in the last, I guess that's 40 years, is this country has become very materialistic, you know, and money is everywhere, and that just seems to drive our culture now. Money and fame, and you know disposability, things like that. Like live fast, die young, and leave a good-looking corpse type of thing. And it's a cultural thing too, man. I mean, you and I talk to young people all the time, and they can't even see past 30.
Yeah, man.
They don't really see their lives past 30. When you can't see your life past 30 years old, you're not going to plan for the future, and you're not going to make decisions that are based on, that plan. You're going to live in the here and now, and that's what these young cats are out here doing, making as much money as they can now, as long as they, can stay on the planet. I guess they figure, let me do my thing because I'm not going to be here that long anyway.
Yeah, I say, I've said that, there's always this talk about, we got to get these young people more jobs, we got to get them more opportunity, we got to get them more things to do. But I always say, even if you do get these, and mainly these young African American men, young black men between the ages of 18 and 25, I say even if you do put them in a position to work at jobs, many of those jobs are not even going to pay enough money for them to sustain a family. So, you and I had a conversation last week where I said in one of my videos that the drug dealers and the drug game is the biggest employer in the black community. And so,
it's interesting that you say that, because that's a great point. Like the way society is progressing now in the United States is like traditional jobs that black folks would have, like working at a factory, at a Nabisco, or a Tasty Cake or something like that, where you could actually make a living wage.
Right.
Those types of jobs aren't available anymore. And the types of jobs that are out there now are in the tech world, or education, or law enforcement, things like that. And a lot of these young black men, they're unskilled.
Yeah.
They have high school diplomas,
if that.
and they're kind of relegated to these minimum wage jobs.
Right.
And they know it, we know it, and then like you said, they turn around and look up the block, and the baller driving a Beamer, and that's the direction they go in. You put two choices in front of somebody, they're going to make a decision, right? And who's going to make that decision to go make $15 an hour and struggle and grind, or go out and stand on the block and sling, or whatever you're going to do, hustle. You're necessarily even selling drugs. A lot of scams they're running out here.
Yeah.
I mean, when I went to see my daughter in Miami, she was talking about how a lot of these young people, they do like telephone and credit card scams to make money.
Yeah.
They're not even selling drugs.
Yeah.
The scams have evolved too, brother.
Yeah. So it's it's like you said earlier. Why should I even come up with a plan for the future where I'm going to when I'm going to die at 30 anyway? So I might as well live fast and die hard and leave a good-looking corpse. I mean, that was a great statement. And what's happening out here is that the old heads like us are not really getting it. They are not understanding how to deal with these young people, nor are they even trying to bring them to the table to try to figure out from their perspective what we can do as older folks to try to help them move through the society. Society, the media, the sign of the times, and economics has a lot to do with it. We can talk poverty all day long. We can talk poor housing. We can talk discrimination. We can talk racism. That has been around since the beginning of time. And, things in the last several decades have not changed. If you go on YouTube and start to look at some of the videos regarding how the black community fared back in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, there's really not a whole lot of change and a whole lot of difference into how we are faring today. And economics basically has a lot to do with it. I think we use this whole racism thing out of proportion. It's out of proportion as far as I'm concerned, because it's always been the the mantra and the tool that we can use to say that we're not getting equal justice or we're not getting equal rights. And to some degree, that's correct. But I also put, and I get vilified for this, I also put a lot of the onus on us, as a people.
No doubt about it, man. I mean, you talk about the old heads, right? Talking to young people. Like when you and I came up, the business model in the United States for success is completely different than it is now. I mean, the way I came through, what I do for a living, I kind of just stepped into, an office as like a copy guy, a temp, copying, mortgage documents, and just kind of worked my way all the way up to through where I am now. But that type of opportunity doesn't exist anymore. Now, things are moving because of technology at speed of light. I mean, in plain English, man, you need an education to make it in the United States now. I mean, you can't get away with that anymore.
That's right.
I mean, people talk about that stuff, but and you don't necessarily have to go to college or whatever, but you have to be intelligent to do well in the United States. I mean, let's just be honest about that. You can't just, everything costs a fortune. Everything's moving at the speed of sound. Things are like super sophisticated. Everything's computerized. Our parents, man, they'd be lost in this, dude. And the only reason you and I, can roll like we roll is because we were around while it was evolving, and you and I are intelligent enough to, to have recognized that and kind of paid attention. You know what I mean?
Right.
Come on. When we was young boys, people didn't have computers in their cribs.
They sure didn't.
Laptops and all that.
Cell phones, computers, laptops, none of that.
Let's keep it real, dude.
Yeah.
And when I say young boys, I mean young adults.
Yeah.
Like in our 20s, we didn't have all that. I'm not talking about when we were kids.
No. When I went to college, the computer was as big as a refrigerator.
That's what I'm saying.
We was doing COBOL. They was doing COBOL.
I mean, our children are the ones that kind of grew up with that.
Yeah.
We didn't. We just, like I said, cats like you and I, recognized what was happening, and we made sure that we were well versed in that stuff. But I mean, I guess we kind of digressed a little bit. I mean, if we're going to talk about these young men out here now, I mean,
are they lost?
Nobody's talking about education, dude. Like nobody's talking about how that's a huge problem. We're so overwhelmed by the violence that we can't even. It's kind of like you standing at a wall and water's rushing through, and you're not even worried about like what's in the water or the flood damage. Or you're just trying to stop the water from rushing through. Like just last night, I watched the news this morning. I mean, it's like a broken record, dude. People, I don't even know where it was, West Philly somewhere, 15 shots fired. I mean, what are these brothers doing, man?
I don't get it either, man, because the same thing is happening down here in Atlanta, man, the same exact thing. And I suspect that the same exact thing is happening in just about every major city in the United States. And I don't understand the mentality.
On vacation, and we were listening to the Florida news, Miami, same exact thing. It's just like I was home watching the news.
Yeah, same exact thing.
The same thing.
You and I always talk about how fortunate we were to have a foundation, and that foundation being our mother.
Yeah.
She was the one who was. And when you talk about education, now dig this. She wasn't highly educated. She wasn't college educated. She didn't know anything about technology, but what she did know about was just life in general. And what she did have was some foresight in terms of how she wanted her children to be able to navigate through the system. And so she laid down some real basic stuff, morals, values, trust, and understanding how to be upstanding people. And I think we took that little bit of information and made it work for us. And what I see now today is that a lot of our young men and a lot of our young people, period, are just not getting that foundation either from their parents or from some of the older people that they're associated with. And it has transcended into them being very angry people, and people who are very angry hurt people. And that's where we are right now. You know, people want to blame the drug epidemic. They want to blame gangs. They want to blame everything else but the fact that we got young people out here that have no love in their life. We got young people. When you sit down and talk to a young person, and I've worked with a lot, and you know that in my career, the first thing that they will say to you in terms of why they act the way they act is because either their dad is not in their life or their mother is not in their life, and nobody cares about them. Nobody loves them. And they're angry about that. And so, you know, because they feel that way, and like you say, you attach a gun to that situation, or you attach drugs to that situation, or you attach media to that situation. When I say media, I'm talking about the music they listen to. Dude, the music we listened to in the 70s is a stark contrast to the music that they listen to now. I pulled up on a guy today coming home from work, and I'm in my ride listening to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and he's in his ride listening to God knows what, you know. And I'm saying to myself, if I'm getting that kind of stuff drummed into my head 24 hours a day, then I can understand why some of these cats are doing the stuff that they're doing. You know, Earth, Wind, and Fire is drumming love, peace, and happiness in my head. And so that's what I'm feeling, and that's what I want to give out. You know, Fly By Night dude is drumming, you got to have an AK with a blunt, and your BIT got to be on your side, and if they don't like how you rolling, then you take them out. And, you know, that's the lyric.
Check this out, brother. I mean, I always told you I wanted to record us just talking like we're doing now.
Right.
I watched a movie this is to what we're talking about. I watched a movie yesterday on Netflix. Netflix? Yeah, called Candy. Right?
I'm hip.
And it was about this female who lived in Texas that ran a drug empire.
Yep, I've seen it.
And she had a crew of females. It was like 4 of them.
Right.
And they sold drugs, and they robbed other drug dealers. Right?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I watched it. I seen the flick.
Right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, what is the thought process that goes into, you know, a project like that? And what are you trying to say? Because to me, like, I'm an artist, you know, and I draw and do all that kind of stuff. And my art, you know, when I create it, it's a message from me to my audience.
Right.
And, you know, so when I look at stuff on TV or movies and things like that, that's always, you know, I factor that into the equation. And, you know, what I got out of it was, you know, black people in the United States have created, and you and I, and you said this many times, a subculture, a subjective reality for ourselves, and we live by those rules, man. And it's going to be hard to break through that.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk to young people and try to maybe reverse this cycle of violence. I mean, they just live in a completely different reality than we do. I mean, when we come in and we say what we say, and, you know, tell stories about how we made it and all that, that stuff is, you know, that's like a movie to them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like what I used to teach and preach to the young kids that I work with in the programs that I worked at. Today, I don't think that's going to fly. You know, because they ain't really trying to hear that.
Young boys, I'm sure if you put together something and you put 15 young brothers in a room, I honestly believe in my heart that 1 or 2 of them you'll get through to them.
Yeah.
But
But it
you're
takes.
right.
It's going to take more
I do
than it's
believe
going
the
to take.
vast majority of them,
Yeah.
they're not trying to hear that, man. You know, like you said something in your last video, man, that was just so on point. You know, you got people living in these areas, man, out in West Philly, North Philly, and South Philly, right? And they're living in abject poverty, right? Their neighborhoods are war zones. Nobody cares about them. You know, they just live in the hood. But I'm sitting up here in my living room watching TV, and they're looking at the same exact thing on TV, and they're seeing people live completely differently in the same country that they live in.
Right. And the same
You know what I'm
city.
saying? And you know, and America is like Disney World. You know how America is. You know, commercials go on every 5 seconds, and look at all the shiny, beautiful toys you can play with, and da 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 da. And they look at that every day, and they can't. They like they can't get it. They can't touch it, and it drives them, man, to you know do. And it wasn't like that when you and I were growing up.
No.
I don't remember our society being quite that materialistic.
Well, they say now if I can't get to it, if I can't touch it, if you are prohibiting me from being a part of that, guess what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna take it. And I don't care if you don't like it. I'm gonna take it, and you ain't gonna do nothing about it. It's really
That's a great
akin
point
to.
you make too about the media, bro.
Yeah.
They're a huge violator, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, when it comes to the ills of society.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, because they want it. Well, it goes back to what you always say about economics.
How to be? They tell you what's cool.
Right.
What's not cool.
Right. How you should look. You know,
What
the
to
whole nine
wear,
thing.
You know, how to show off. You know how to floss. All that stuff. That's all comes from that black box we look at.
But dig this, dude. We had a president in office for 4 years who basically did the same thing that I just talked about. He said, "I'm gonna do what the hell I want to do, and I don't care if you don't like it, and if you don't, so what?" You know. And so if you got the leader of the free world adapting an attitude like that, then what can you expect from our young people? In addition to that, you got, like you said, that black box. You got companies out here making video games of destruction, teaching people how to kill each other, glorifying it, and making a profit off of it, and making young people think that it's an acceptable practice that when you don't like somebody, you kill them. You know, and they've adapted that attitude from the time that they're 6 years old until they turn 16. And so now the video game
like I said
gun.
earlier, that disposable society mentality. Everything's disposable in our society.
Yeah.
I mean, even like sports, like you know, we were talking about the NBA finals and all that. Sports is not like it used to be. You really can't name a superstar athlete that is dominant in the league for 10 years, 12 years. LeBron is the last of the Mohicans. You're not going to see that anymore. You're not going to see, these young superstars that are playing now be like that for 10 years, 15 years. That's not what happened, dude.
No.
They'll play, they'll be tough for about 5, 6 years, whatever. Make a gazillion dollars, maybe even get a couple rings, and then move on. It's just disposable society now.
Crazy.
Because people lose interest.
Nuts.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Let me just ask you one more question.
We're from a different generation, man.
Yeah, let me ask you one more question before we cut this short or cut it off. We got the fastest woman in the world got busted for smoking weed. What's your take on that?
Well, my take on that is this. It shouldn't be illegal to smoke weed because it's not performance enhancing. But everybody knew that that drug was on the banned substance list, correct?
Yep.
And everybody knows you get tested when you're in the Olympics, so she made a bad decision, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
that's what it boils down to.
She made a bad decision. She messed up.
we could
Give
talk
her a
about,
chance to go to the Olympics and probably win a couple gold. And she'll probably be back in 4 years.
yeah,
But she messed up.
yeah, yeah,
You can't sit there and say, well, it should be legal. Yeah, it should be, but it ain't.
yeah.
You know what
That's
I'm
right.
saying?
That's right. If you're a football player and you get popped on a substance abuse situation rule in football, then you get suspended for 6 games. Um,
Well, basically, what happened with her was they suspended her. It was a suspension, but the suspension lasted all the way through the Olympics.
Right.
It's a 30-day suspension. It's
Right.
over August 30th. The
Right.
Olympics will be over by then.
yeah.
That's how it wasn't. They didn't ban her from the games.
So,
They just suspended her for 30 days.
well, yeah. And then they said she couldn't
in
run.
effect, banned her from the games.
Then they said she couldn't run in the 4x400 either. So
Yeah, she's banned.
she got banned from that. All right, brother. Before I let you go, give me in your estimation, what can we do about this whole issue of violence? Because it's just not germane in Philadelphia. It's happening here in Atlanta. It's all over the country, man. And everybody's like up in arms. I said earlier, man, that this campaign of, remember when AIDS first came out? We had a campaign on,
Yeah.
every billboard, every commercial, every radio ad, every newspaper ad was telling people how to use a condom, and stay away from having unprotected sex. When the pandemic hit, there was a massive campaign on, wearing your mask and not going and being involved in crowds.
Yeah.
It seems to me that if they do at least attempt to provide a massive campaign on how and why we should stop the violence, maybe that will send a message. And it's not happening, because violence is being minimized in our society. And I don't want to go here and say it's being minimized only because it's happening in the black community. It's really happening all over the country. It's more emphasized in the black community, but it's happening all over the place. So what would be like a strategy you might come up with to help solve this?
I'm going to take Philly. I'm going to take what I see every day in Philly. It seems to me, I watched camera footage of these brothers shoot up this storefront
Right.
days ago.
I saw that.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking to myself, where are the police?
Right?
So it seems to me, and then I watched that Black Lives Matter and that looting, and watched them loot Foreman Mills down on 52nd Street, live on the news while I'm sitting here. It was live.
Right.
And it's live on TV, and it's taking place. And again, where are the police? So I would imagine you need some more feet on the ground in some of these areas. I mean, these young boys, I get they're jumping out of cars and shooting at each other, but they're not doing it in front of the cops. So where are the cops?
Yeah, and they know the cops are not around.
Right.
You know.
I mean, you can't just do you used to be a cop. You had your, you did your drive around
Right.
and all that.
Right.
You do that, like, you can't. You gotta have people. You gotta have some beat cops out there walking around.
Well, they say they're short
Like,
and they
you
can't
guys
get people through the academy.
Ambassadors.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
I mean, I think that would go a really long way.
Well, they say they can't get enough cops through the academy in an appropriate amount of time, and nobody wants to be a cop no more
Maybe
because
they need to come
it's
up with something like what you guys are doing in Georgia.
yeah,
They come up with some type of supplemental paramilitary organization like the Ambassadors.
yeah. That would be a great idea, man.
Huh?
That would be a great idea.
I mean, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Just like a public safety force.
Yep.
That's just out there.
Yeah, and it certainly would not take a whole lot of time. It certainly wouldn't take a whole lot of training. I mean, some training, but not a lot. And they could definitely be a supplemental force to the officers that are already out there. And I'm sure that they will welcome that. So,
And what's interesting about that is it would A, create some jobs, and B, you can hire folks that live in those neighborhoods to do that.
that's right. That's right.
And pay them.
Yeah.
Because some of these neighborhoods have actually formed some informal, citizen watch groups.
Right.
So why not formalize it?
Yeah.
Fund it. Give them the support they need.
It's great. That's a great, great, great strategy, brother.
Because that's the thing that's just so surprising to me about, like, when I see those videos like that, like, well, where are the cops? I mean, it's like 6,000 cops in Philly, right?
Not quite, but close.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Like,
come on.
like, where are they?
We've been to all those neighborhoods.
Yes.
Kensington's a disgrace.
Yes.
Where are the cops in Kensington?
Yeah. No, it is a disgrace. It's a disgrace. Yeah.
They did an article, a story today on the news where trash was sitting out on the corner in Kensington about 5 feet high,
Right.
almost taking up a whole block for a week, or almost 2 weeks, and then they finally came and removed it.
Right.
I mean, come on, that's disgraceful.
It is. It is. All right, brother, man. Thank you for sitting in on this episode with us. We're going to do some more of these things and invite some other folks, and maybe get some folks on a group talk, and continue.
Trying to get our kids, man.
Yeah, continue
That's
to
talk. Kelsey, Ashley,
Rob, Ken, Jamila.
Let's. I'm gonna reach out to them and see. Let's try to do that. Let's just try to have something with them.
I agree. All right, man.
They transverse, the strata economically, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right, my brother.
Okay, man. Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, that was Scott Bell, the other half of the Agents for Change Network group, and we just had a poignant conversation about what's going on in terms of the violence that's occurring across America. And again, because we're both from Philadelphia, we always kind of fall back and go back to using and looking at Philadelphia as the model, if you will, of what's happening and what we can do to come up with some strategies to try to resolve some of these issues. My name is Rob Bell, and this is the Agents for Change Network, and we'll see you next time.